In plants, there is a differentiation of two structures called as tunica and carpus. In the apical meristem, when we study about apical meristem in detail, we will come across the term called as tunica and carpus, which are the zones of the tissues, which are the zones of the tissues in the apical meristems. These names are given on the basis of the theory proposed by tunica carpus theory of Schmidt, which is not in their syllabus, but you can say tunica carpus theory was proposed by Schmidt. Okay, so on the basis of that, apical meristem has been divided into two zones, tunica and carpus. Now, why we are talking about tunica and carpus here is, we said origin of epidermis. So, when you are talking about origin of epidermis, we can say that if a plant body is, in the plant there is a differentiation of tissues into tunica and carpus, then the epidermis comes from tunica. Okay, and if the plant doesn't show, or its apical meristem doesn't show the differentiation of tunica and carpus, then we can say that this epidermis develops from the protoderm. Okay, if there is a differentiation of tunica and carpus, then the plant body shows the development of epidermis from tunica, and if it is not having any tunica and carpus, then you will say that it is the initiation of epidermis is from the protoderm. Now, in case of roots, now in protoderm, where it is present, protoderm it is present at the outer layer of the apical meristem. We said it is originating from the protoderm. Now, where this protoderm exists, it exists at the outer layer of the apical meristem. Now, next, in case of roots, how does the epidermal tissue system develops? In case of roots, the epidermal tissue system gets originated through the protoderm, which is associated with the cortex and root cap. Okay. Now, in case of in the plants which are showing secondary growth, the plants which show secondary growth, then what? From where does this epidermis originate? If the plant is showing secondary growth, then this epidermis is being ruptured, and then it will develop into a structure called as peribulum. Then it will not be called as epidermis. Because of the secondary growth, what will happen? The destruction of epidermis will occur, which may lead to a development of another structure which is almost similar to epidermis. Then we don't call it as epidermis, then we call it as peribulum. So, origin of epidermis is initially occurring from the tunica region if the plant body is having tunica and carpus, and if there is no differentiation, then it comes from the protoderm, which is the outermost layer of the apical meristem. Next, in case of roots, it is developing from this epidermis gets originated from the either in association with the cortex and root cap, and in the plants which are showing secondary growth, this may be developed with an alternative name called as peribulum, because of the secondary growth, the destruction of epidermis is more possible. Now, next, there are two types of epidermis, those are called as uniseriate and multiseriate epidermis. What is uniseriate epidermis? First, we will talk about uniseriate epidermis. Uniseriate epidermis is a type of epidermis which is developing from single row of cells. If it is developing from the single row of cells of the epidermis, and it is called as uniseriate epidermis, and this type of epidermis is of common in occurrence. And how does this single row of cells is formed? Because if there is an anticlinal division in the protoderm, if the protoderm shows anticlinal division, then the type of epidermis we develop is uniseriate. Now, in case of multiple epidermis, it also in some cases the epidermis are present either in the 2 to 16 layers. If what is multi means, if it is more than one layer, then it is called as multi-layer. So, if it is existing in 2 to 16 layers of arrangement, then this is called as multiseriate epidermis. And how it is formed? It is formed because of the periclinal division of protoderm. And this is also called as multiple epidermis. And example for multiple epidermis is leaves of Nerium ficus. Now, when we said it is a multiple epidermis, as we said, it is available in the leaves of Nerium ficus. So in this we said multiple epidermis. So how does this multiple epidermis appear in this plant? The outermost layer will be similar to that of the uniseriate epidermis, and where the remaining inner layer will be showing the variations different. The arrangement of the rows of the cells will be different from the outer cells of the cortex. Right, that is the difference. How you identify multiple epidermis is the first layer, the outermost layer will be similar to that of the uniseriate epidermis, and the immediate layer, like I say, second layer to the 16th layer, second layer afterwards, the arrangement of the cells will be showing variations and different to the other cells of the cortex. Now, what is the function of epidermis? They store water, but they lack chlorophyll. For example, we have velamen layer, and this is present in the roots of orchids. So this velamen layer, which are normally seen in the roots of orchids, can also be taken as an example for multiple epidermis. Now, why we are taking here, what is the use here? The inner layer of the cells which are present in this type of tissue are almost helpful for the storage of the material in the plant body. What storage of the material? It will be helpful in the storage of the water. So, the velamen layer of the roots of the orchids, which are considered as multiple epidermis, will have the inner row of cells, inner layer of row of cells will be majorly useful for the storage of water in the plant like orchid. Okay. Now, when we come to here, this is about epidermis, characteristics, origin of epidermis, types of epidermis, uniseriate and multiseriate. What is uniseriate? What is multiseriate? Where it is seen, and what are the storage it is doing, and what does chlorophyll is lacking. Example is velamen. Now, in addition to that, when we talk about epidermis, we will use a term called as cuticle. What is cuticle? What are the functions of cuticle? We will just talk about it.